Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the lead. Now, this is a concept that basically comes out of journalistic writing. So news, magazines, things like this. But it can also be a really useful way of thinking about what we call popular scholarship. So this has been a big push in the last several years among professional scholars and academics. This idea that we should be doing more to get our ideas out to the general public. And a lot of this is rooted in concerns about rising scientific illiteracy, rising belief in conspiracy theories, in scientific frauds, etc., etc. So these sorts of things, concern about the gap between the work that we as academics do and the way that the general public looks at the world, has fueled this sort of interest in public scholarship, public humanities, public sciences, etc., etc. YouTube actually is one mechanism for doing popular scholarship. But the idea of writing for a popular audience is also really, really important for this movement. And so understanding the idea of the lead, because it's a technique used by journalists and it's a rhetorically effective technique, this is something that, even if you're not writing journalism, can be really, really useful for you for writing engaging pieces. So what is a lead? Well, L-E-D-E. This is how it's traditionally spelled, although some people do spell it L-E-A-D. Basically, the lead is the key information that somebody needs to know from a story. There's different ways of approaching this, but basically a lead has 3 tasks. 1, give us the main point. 2, hook the reader's interest. And 3, do that in as few words as possible. So why is this good? Well, this is good because if a reader is engaged, great. So if you can hook their interest, fantastic. They're more likely to read the rest of the thing or watch the rest of the video if you're making a video or something like this. If you can't hook their interest, if they don't want to continue reading or watching, if you start with the lead, start with that key piece of information, then they still get the main point. They still know the thing that they need to know. And you want to do it in as few words as possible, because one of the principles of journalistic writing is that people have short attention spans. They're not great at paying attention long term. And so the more compact you can make something, the more digestible it'll be. And this is a good principle to carry over for general writing, general rhetoric. So there's 2 broad approaches to leads. There's the hard lead and the soft lead. The hard lead is a just sort of direct statement of, here is the most important piece of information. A woman was injured falling off a ladder while painting her house. That would be a hard news, hard lead. Breaking story, straight to the facts. Here is the piece of information you need to know. The rest of the story will be detail. There's also what's called a soft lead. And this is more, this is more narrative based typically. So it introduces the idea, but isn't giving us a sort of concise 1-sentence, 35-word or less summary of the main thing. So it builds a bit more of a story, but that story still tells us what we need to know. For things like human interest pieces or a lot of social sciences writing, a lot of popular scholarship, popular science writing, things like this, a soft lead may be more effective because it can be more engaging to have a narrative, whereas with something like breaking news, you really want, here's the key piece of information. So those are 2 different approaches, the hard lead versus the soft lead. They have different benefits and different types of writing in which they work better or worse. So what's supposed to go into a lead? Well, typically for journalists, they use the 5 W's and an H model. I think most people are probably familiar with this, the journalistic questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Basically, this is the key information that you would need to know in order to understand any given story. Who's involved, or who did the thing happen to? What actually happened? Where did it happen? When did it happen? Why did it happen? And how did it happen? Theoretically, if you can answer all of those questions in, say, 35 words or less, you have a solid, hard lead. On the other hand, if you're using a soft lead, you may develop that over 2 to 3 sentences. You may develop that over a brief story, maybe a shortish paragraph. But again, the idea is that you're giving us all of the key information that we need to know in order to understand what's going on, why we should be interested in it, and you're doing this as efficiently as possible in terms of the smallest number of words you can use. What about the location of the lead? This is a very, very important thing. There is a phrase you may be familiar with called burying the lead. This is actually something we often do as scholars, essentially. We may have a lot of information that we give before we actually get to the point. In journalism and in popular scholarship, burying the lead is a bad idea. So the lead usually should come near the beginning of the piece. If it's a hard lead, it's probably going to be the first sentence, because that's the one sentence you can be reasonably sure that every reader will read. So you start with that. If it's a soft lead, that probably should be your first paragraph. One great benefit to journalistic writing is that you also get headlines and frequently bylines or leads. So you can kind of build some more interest gathering. You can build some more information into the headline, into the byline, et cetera, et cetera. So you do have that resource, but you still want that first line or that first paragraph to do a lot of the informative work. So typically the lead is going to be very, very early on. And again, it's going to be doing these 3 main things: identifying the main idea of this article, hooking the reader's interest, and doing it as quickly and efficiently as possible. It's a mechanism for a very, very strong, effective problem-solving tool for the problems that people don't tend to have long attention spans, and people may or may not be willing to invest the time and energy into reading a full article.